Hello everyone and welcome to my podcast. I've been teaching law for the last 30 years and I would like to share with you some experiences on topics such as writing and doing research in English, such as teaching abroad, and such as also how to introduce art in the classroom. Welcome all of you to the English season of my podcast called I Teach It My Way.
Well, today we are going to talk about your experience as teaching as a visiting professor in the United States.
With pleasure.
When and how, did it happen?
It happened 20 years ago when I was asked whether I would like to participate in a small contest, the result of which would be that three young Argentine lecturers would be finalists, and one of them would be selected to teach a 1-month course in January of 2003 in Louisiana, in the south of the United States. And then the dean of that law school came to Argentina to interview these three persons. I was one of them. Mm-hmm. It was a terrifying experience, like having an interview in English, like talking to you now in English. And this person
Were you nervous?
I was scared. He was, one of these guys who assault you with questions that you don't see coming. I hope you're not going to be like that.
No, not at all.
Thank God.
How old were you at that moment?
I was 30-something, 33.
Young.
He was maybe 20 years my senior. This was in the lobby of a hotel on Carlos Pellegrini Street. There was another professor who was smoking all the time, although you couldn't smoke there. And after that, we went for dinner. In the US, you always mix a social thing with the professional, although the social is still professional, but you pretend it's not. And there were 4 other people, and we were supposedly only chatting and so on. But they were assessing me all the time, so much so that I learned later that they preferred me to the other 2 only or mostly because they liked the way I talked in English at that dinner. Imagine.
Okay. And would you say, is it difficult to find a job as a visiting professor? Or
it is very difficult, I would say. And it is a very competitive market when it comes to Argentines wanting to teach in the United States or in Europe or in China, but especially in the United States, a little bit less in Europe. There are many guys who would like to spend their summers doing that for many reasons, and there aren't many opportunities. There's only a small number of jobs available, so it is difficult.
So Louisiana was your first opportunity?
Yes, it was, and I'm ever grateful for that.
Could you talk us a little bit about that university? How is it?
Yes, that university is a state university, public, very, very big. It has something special for a lawyer that Louisiana is the only state out of the 50 states in the United States with a civil law system like Argentina. And that made it for them more interesting to have someone from Argentina.
What about the publications? Are they important in order to find a job as a visiting professor? They
are very important. If you don't have publications in English, they will not consider you. But they're not enough. They are like a starting point.
And did a certain article or publication help you to land a job?
Not that first time. For subsequent visiting teaching jobs, yes, some articles were important when it came to the interview, and they would, check my resume carefully and ask me about a certain article. But not that first time, maybe because it happened in the way I told you, where they came to Argentina to interview us. There was a particular interest in an Argentine.
Did you have any troubles when you were applying for this kind of job?
Well, always the visa-related issues, they're always trouble. But mostly in that it's very cumbersome and boring. And when you go teach for a short period of time, you always need a new visa. It's called a J1 visa. It's the same visa that students who go to do an LLM get. There are several types of J1 visa, and mine is called short-term visitor visa. And it has an expiration date that is the time when you finish your job there. Which means that each time you go again, you need a J1, you need to go to the embassy. So I have so many.
And COVID give you many headaches related to the process?
Yes, COVID gave me many headaches, but let me tell you that when the embassy, because of COVID, wouldn't give B1 and B2 visas, the tourist visas, they would still take good care of us with the J1s. And now let me tell you something else you might be interested in that hasn't got to do with COVID. One time, after I went to Louisiana that first time I told you, which was in 2003, a friend from Chile calls me on the phone, or maybe sends me an email, and says, this is on a Friday, he says, on Monday, Mark Adams, a professor at Valparaiso University in Indiana, somewhere in between Chicago and South Bend, where Notre Dame is, he will be in Buenos Aires, Professor Mark Adams. He's now with me in Santiago de Chile, said this friend of mine, and he will be on Monday, this unplanned extension of his trip from Chile to Argentina, and he wants to meet Argentine academics. Are you free to take him out for lunch? And I think it's important. You asked me, is it difficult to get these things? It's important to say yes, always, because you never know. Also, maybe because you want to help your friend, which was true in this case. But I said yes. Then I'm having lunch with Mark, a very, very tall guy. And I had arrived from LSU not long ago, and he got interested in this. He was working at a law school that wanted to develop their international program. They wanted to start bringing lecturers from abroad. And he started to ask me, how does LSU do it for you? Where do you stay when you go? Who pays for the airfare? How much do they pay you? I told him everything. And then he said, would you come and do that for us at Valpo? That's how they call Valparaiso University Law School, which, by the way, doesn't exist anymore, this law school. It wasn't through my own fault, but it doesn't exist anymore. So I went to Valpo one time. And then I went again. And it was when I was there, you see, one thing takes you to the next thing. Had I not taken this phone call, accepted taking Mark for lunch, have I not come to Valparaiso, then my friend Zachary Kalo would never have asked me over lunch in Valparaiso, Indiana, would you like to drive with me 1 hour eastwards tomorrow and go meet a friend at Notre Dame? And I said, of course. And we went, and a new dream started.
So talking about networking and contacts, Do you think it's important to have people in the foreign university you met before in order to be hired? Or
Very important. These things seldom happen by reading an ad where they say we are hiring and you apply. Like recently I know a guy who does that, and he was very discouraged because he only gets rejection letters. Yes, absolutely. You need someone there who will fight the battle for you. Or, as it was the case in Notre Dame for me, after I went that day and I met the right guys who were not my friends, I wrote to my friend who had taught there for many years, and I said to him, today I was in Notre Dame and I would love to teach comparative constitutional law there the way I did it at LSU and the way I'm doing it now at Valpo. And before I know it, this person who had been my professor in Oxford wrote a letter to the dean on my behalf suggesting that maybe they should consider me as a candidate. So yes, you do need someone.
And what about the payment? Is it well paid?
For an Argentine, it is very well paid, especially now, that like my friend was making the joke. I have this friend who lives in Houston, and we had dinner the other day with him, and he pulled a 1,000 pesos bill, the orange ones, and said, this is the new 100 pesos bill, right? And I said, yes. So yes, now $1 is 200 pesos. So yes, you're so well paid. If you're an American, however, compared to what a full-time professor gets paid, you're not well paid. So I used to say, in case you're interested, that I make in the US in 1 month what I make in Argentina in 3 months. That's the relationship.
Great.
Terrific.
What about the teacher examinations? What's the relation with that?
The evaluations.
The evaluations.
The teacher evaluations, they are difficult. They are painful. They are overblown. Their importance has been exaggerated, unfortunately. In my particular case, I'll share with you a couple of things that come to mind. My first time, I told you, at LSU, 2003, I had a large group of students, and then the evaluations came. The way it works in the United States is the professor never receives the evaluations if he hasn't handed down the grades for the students, so as to avoid that the professor will be ill-disposed when he is examining the papers. So you first grade your exams without knowing who you're grading. They always use an anonymous system. And only once you give the registrar of the law school, the academic secretary, so to speak, your grades, then they give you the evaluations. And my first time, I had very good evaluations, except for one. There was a person who killed me. So I was very hurt by this. I had never had the experience of evaluations. And I went to my friend Cheney Joseph, who was the vice dean of the LSU Law Center.
Very concerned.
Yes, and I was also concerned that they wouldn't hire me anymore. So now I go to him. He's a very balanced, reasonable person. He had already read them because it's a serious thing there. Your authorities, the relevant dean, reads your evaluations. Not only you read them. And he had read already, and he said, no. The way it works, he said, is like this. If 30 people say that you have done this and this and this and this in the right way, and one person disagrees, we don't pay too much attention to that. We are worried when there is an important, a significant tendency.
And in Argentina, don't you have this kind of evaluation?
Seldom, rarely. There are, but no one pays them much attention. Not many students fill in their evaluations. You know how it works in the US? In the US, the grades, the marks are not released. They're not given to the students until 80% of the class has filled in their evaluations.
But they are honest with their evaluation, or they just don't pay attention and just fill the gaps?
Who knows?
Because here we fill the gaps. Like
Who knows? Some are honest, I guess.
How important are students in this experience in the foreign country where you don't know so many people?
Oh, they're everything. Imagine, as you say, I don't know so many people, so those are the guys I know. So typically what I do is I take them out for meals in groups, and in some of the schools I have taught, the school gives me like a budget for that, so I can treat the students for dinner in groups, and then maybe I have played sports with them too.
Which kind of sports?
Well, imagine, I played soccer not too long ago, and it was raining so much. I was thinking, I'll get injured any meeting, and it'll be such
and it's very cold in the period you.
Oh yeah, so teach. Cold. But people ask me all the time, why do you come this time of the year? And well, it's the only time I can come because it's my summer and there are no classes. Although to Kenya, I go in my winter, and then it's not so cold in Kenya when I go.
What about the amount of the budget? Is it enough?
No, it's a small budget
for your standards.
It's a small budget, but I have always friends who don't use their own budget and they give it to me. But one time I had a problem. This was the first time I did this at Notre Dame. That would be 2012. Because the way it works with these things in the US is that you pay with your own card and they reimburse you. They reimburse you like this. Okay. But I got a call or an email where they said, there is an issue here. We have checked the bill and there are alcoholic beverages in that bill. And I said, yes, of course. Everyone had a beer or a gin and tonic. And they said, no way. The school is not reimbursing for that. And I got, oh my. I mean, that was obviously like the most coasty part of the whole gig. No, because I went to my friend because I had also used the money of my friend. But my friend, Rick, he was also the assistant dean, blah, blah, blah. He was the guy who hired me. So he understood completely the situation and put it on him. And he covered up for me and said, next time when they have drinks, it's on the students.
Hot chocolate. That's
yes,
it.
Mind you, yes. No, they can have drinks, but they'll have to pay. Mind you, remember that in the United States, law students are graduate students. So no one is underage. And in fact, 1/3 of my students are married. So for them to have a glass of wine or a beer in a restaurant is like the most usual occurrence.
And let's talk about Kenya experience. Is it very different?
Kenya. I started doing my visiting professor trips to Kenya 10 years ago. And they are, as I said, in my winter, where we have a long vacation in Argentina. Not as long as the summer one, but pretty long. Is it different? Well, in many ways it is different because law is an undergraduate degree there, like in Argentina. So I deal with younger people. Also, it's different because I have the incentive of safari, the animals, which I love very much. So most
You
weekends.
go with students there? You don't
No,
have a budget for
no.
that?
Well, imagine the way I got lured to go to Kenya when they invited me to attract me, to lure me. They said, what we do with visiting professors is we take them to 2 safaris. So I have my contract somewhere here in my office, and it says they would pay me a certain sum, which wasn't, it was much smaller than the one in the US, but it included 2 safaris full board. So I was like ecstatic because I have always loved animals. No, I don't go with the students to the safaris, although because I have been going so many years, now I have many students who have married. I know their families. I've been to their weddings. I've been to baptisms, the whole package. And a couple of families have taken me on safaris with them, the whole family, and that was fantastic.
You always go to the same university, also in United States. It's
Yes.
not something that you change.
I try to stick to the same universities if I can. I think it makes it more pleasant,
Like the
easier.
community.
Yes.
You enjoy that.
I enjoy that. Then the students in Kenya are marvelous. They are the most ambitious students in a good sense that I ever had. It's such a pleasure teaching there.
And when you say goodbye to them and you have
Yes.
to come back to reality
Yes.
and start living in Argentina again
Yeah.
with Argentinian students, that
Yeah.
much more different.
Yeah. The first few weeks are always difficult when I return.
Depression or
Kind of. The first few weeks. There was a student in Argentina who, at the time, we used to hang out a lot together, and he said, it's our responsibility to cheer you up the first few weeks after we remember. That was after you returned. That was Joaquin Jasminoy. But, in more recent years, when the time comes up, I'm really looking forward to return to Argentina. Like this time, I've been away for 2 months now in the US and in Italy, and I was really looking forward to coming back. And yeah, it was nice.
and this year is special too here in Argentina because virtual.
Yes, we're
disappears,
back to
yeah.
in-person lessons, and I have many things going on. It's exciting. Yeah, it's good. But there was something else you were saying about Kenya and coming back here. Did you know, I think you might know that I invited 17 of my students in Kenya to come to Argentina in different years, 2 or 3 each year. 4 are coming next month. So that also helps me to, it's like bringing a piece of Africa. Here they do their attachments at law firms. Here they have worked at Marval, Cabanella, Fiorito, several of the good law firms in town. And that's been a fantastic experience.
Also stressful because you have to.
Oh yeah, very
take
stressful.
care.
Oh yes. Oh, these past few days have been very stressed because of this, as I'm having to find for them places where to stay, the firms. Yeah.
It's also your character. You get involved with students.
Yes, I get into all sorts of problems.
Did you have some frustrations in getting a job? Some difficulties?
Sure. The first time that I ever had a conversation about teaching abroad was not at LSU. It was before that. And I had this crazy idea of teaching in Oxford. So because in general, people don't offer you things, that's how it works for me and for most. You need to knock on doors. I asked my mentor in Oxford whether he could help me find a way of being a visiting professor there when I was finishing my studies. And he was absolutely taken by surprise by this request. And he said, okay, well, can you teach Roman law? Now, the other day I saw this movie, this Paul Thomas Anderson movie, Licorice or Licorice Pizza, where the guy says to his girlfriend when she's about to go to an interview, say yes to everything. When they say, can you ride on horse? Yes. So
can
here,
you speak Portuguese? Yes, sure.
Exactly. So you've seen it. So, can you teach Roman law? Yes! I had no idea.
So, did it work?
No,
to say yes,
it didn't work. It didn't work. It was a frustration.
And do you enjoy when some students come to your office and ask you help to find jobs? I mean,
yes, I do it all the time. I say that I have two parallel professions. One is that of a matchmaker, and the other one is I land jobs. I'm not so good as a matchmaker.
You have your frustrations too.
Yes, we'll talk about that some other day.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
And which was your best experience?
Well, I always like to think, although
it's going to come.
No, that's
that's
too trite. And also, you don't know. But I always like to think that my best experience is my last experience. This is not always true, but I would say China, my visiting teaching trip to China and to India were my best experiences, I would think.
Okay, that inspired you to write a book.
Yes, I wrote books on that. And you know what? The other day, I was very stressed. This week, beginning of a semester here, has been very stressful. And then I got this email that completely changed my mood for the better. And it is that they have invited me to come again to India in December. And China is the last very successful experience, but India has been my favorite trip ever in my life. And now they ask me, would you like to come in December? So
this December?
Yeah.
So you are very organized because you know what are you going to do on December. So
I'm a maniac.
Yeah.
You know.
I know. So how did you get that opportunities?
Yeah.
It was completely different from the way of Luciana, or?
Yes, way more difficult. To get to visiting teach, right? We're not talking about moving to a country. That's a different story.
Is for a period of 1 month?
1 month, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 months. Never more than that. I always keep my job in Argentina. And there are many like me who are in this same game. Now, with places like India and China, my experience is that if you don't have a person who is of your mindset, let's call it Western mindset, let's call it European, generously understood as including Argentine, if you don't have one of those in India or in China working for you, I don't think you can ever make it, because there are so many assumptions that you don't understand going on that you'll become so frustrated that you will give up on the project. But I had someone from the US, and that qualifies as European for my vocabulary here, who was actively helping me go to India in 2013 and to China in 2019. And without those guys who were there, one in India, one in China, and they were my interlocutors, it wouldn't have happened. Now, once you've been there one time, now I have my Chinese friends and my Indian friends. This invitation I received for December is from an Indian guy. Since I've been there in 2013, we always kept in touch. I always follow up. I say to my niece, growing up is following up. I always follow up with this guy. 2 years ago, he says, I moved to Kolkata, which we call in Argentina Calcutta. From Bhubaneswar in Orissa, the small place where we met, to Kolkata, important place. He's now the dean there.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, I received a 400 pages PhD thesis, supervised, directed by this guy. And I was being asked if I would accept to be in the panel that was going to evaluate this PhD thesis. 3 panelists, I would be one of them. You need to read it, you need to submit a report saying this is good, this is bad, changes. Well, I accepted, I did the job, I got paid, which I thought was extraordinary. It's the first time I get paid for this kind of job, which I do very often. Mm-hmm. But I had never done it for an Indian university. I was in Puerto Rico when I did this on another experience. And then, now, like a month ago, another one. And it's the same guy who is the supervisor of this other student. And you know, in academia, things work like this. They send me this second thesis. It's a lot of work for me. It's on criminal law. I have no clue. Indian criminal law. I accept.
Another time you say yes before.
I say yes. Without even reading, I say yes. Well put. And then I stall. I delay. Not purposefully. I was traveling. I was busy. So my man, the guy I met in 2013, the supervisor for this thesis, he writes to me to give me a nudge. I think you are delaying here. And by the way, would you like to come in December? That's how things work, you know?
So the advice is to be open.
Yes, very open. And then things happen. You see here, I was hoping he might give me that bait, that incentive of the December invitation. So now I'm working hard on that thesis.
And are you reading about India? Are you preparing yourself to...
Never. I never do that. I go and I take it by surprise. Nothing.
You arrived without...
Yes. The only thing I do...
You took a Chinese class.
Yes, I studied Mandarin. I thought that would be a good preparation. I love languages, so that was good. Mandarin was very useful in China. Although I knew only a little bit, it was very useful. For example, in the classes I taught, I would say 1 or 2 things in Mandarin and people were ecstatic. They literally stopped and they started, giving me a round of applause in the middle of the class.
They are not used to that.
No, because the foreigner, he says, ni hao. But I could say more. 我是 Argentine人.
I hope you are not saying anything.
No.
We can't translate.
It's
No?
good.